How you doing, everybody? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Good.
Yes.
Kenny. What can I say?
Ted.
That was what a wonderful experience that was, and a great show. And I have to say, Susie, the editing was awesome. I just love the way you put that together. But what a great show to relive. I'm so glad that we ran that. Have you had any of those dreams yet that you stopped having?
No, I've had a couple of new ones, but they're too bizarre. I don't I can't quite make any sense out of them yet.
Well, if you have a couch back there, you want to lay down for a few minutes and talk
I
about
do. I always want to lay down.
it? I don't know if you saw the BG documentary, the newer
Yeah,
one.
it's great.
I had to watch it a couple times. It was fantastic. They had so many they had so many lives, and at the end, Barry summed it up by saying, it's all about the songwriting. It's all about the songwriting. And they would just go in the studio and just come up with these ideas and would just write these songs. And it's just the talent, knowing what you were meant to do and just getting it out there.
Yeah,
And,
it was a really well done. They just reinvented themselves twice. It was just unbelievable.
it's just amazing. And the thing that it reminded me as I listened to this concert again that you just did was, getting those ideas out there, out of yourself, And I've always wondered, you write a song, you sing it for years and years and years. The Stones put it once. They said, "Love is like our music that splashes on the stone. Love is like the water that splashes on the stone. Love is like our music. It's here and then it's gone." So you're living that lyric, you're living that song, you put it down, and then it's gone. And then of course you play it for years and years after that. I'm talking about this for one song in particular called Drawing Board, where you wrote about things that were happening in this world and it's time to get back to the drawing board. You think that's evident now?
Yes, I do. I think sadly it becomes more and more relevant as it goes on. Although at the time, it was, well, no, I think it's exactly relevant now. We got past Stalin, Hitler, and Mao, and now we're dealing with people just crazy, and they're loading up in our Congress, and it's insane to me, just totally insane. It's enough where it's distracted me enough where I'm just not being as creative as I was, because I just don't want to write about it in a way. In a way I do, but I want to have some perspective, and I don't have any right now.
You always have a great perspective. Don't say that.
Thanks, but that's because I wait until I'm kind of able to see it without being so inundated, and embedded in my own anger. Because you can't write a good song if you're angry.
Yeah.
You can write it just at the edge of it when you're breaking out of it.
So typically, oftentimes when we have concerts at the mansion, afterwards, we hang around a little bit, and then when things quiet down, I break out the old Beatle books and we play the old Beatles songs. And it always amazes me what they were able to do at 17, 18, 19 years old.
No,
Writing those chord changes and everything were just
no.
incredible to me. Do you ever go back and listen to old tunes or influence or any kind of
in Arkansas. One of the Republican senators said, gender affirming
somebody has
are
a TV on in the background?
experimental and at worst a serious threat to the household. These are not experimental treatments.
To help my country, I tried to join the Marines in Indiana, and it was the first year that women were allowed in the military. So I marched down with my best friend from high school, and they lost our paperwork. That's how they dealt with women at the time. After the third time, I said, God's telling me to come to Washington. And I had started the mansion here. Being a single woman.
How are we doing now, Ted?
We seem okay. Did you ever go back and listen to, just be influenced by the old music?
Yeah, that song that was just playing at the end of the show, "Color of the Sky," was totally influenced. a direct rip. Although it wasn't intended to be. I actually wrote that song in 15 minutes after having a conversation with a friend of mine who was going through some marital difficulties. Um, but when I listened to it after it was finished, I said, "Oh, that wouldn't have existed if the Beatles hadn't existed." So there you go. You know, I have a feeling a lot of songs wouldn't have existed if the Beatles hadn't existed.
Ain't that the truth? If anybody does have a question, just raise your hand and we'll be able to ask it.
Hi, everybody.
Okay, you raised your hands. Great. You've got to have some questions. So New York City today, I know you're in the city here, walking outside. Tell me what you think. Things different?
Oh, things are starting to get, starting to recognize it as New York again. Um, it was pretty surreal for a lot of, for 9 months. I kept expecting to see Rod Serling leaning on the lamppost outside, Imagine, if you will. Yeah, and at the end of that, you look out the window at night. I think people who lived outside of the cities, people in houses and in the suburbs, it wasn't quite as obvious to them. But I was living in Brooklyn, and these streets were rocking on a Friday and Saturday night generally. And now I'd look out there for months and months, and there was nobody on the street, nobody at all, and it was really bizarre. It's just now this week it opened up to 100%. I'm hoping that's the right move, but I guess we'll find out soon. But it's starting to look like New York again. Yeah.
Getting back to the songwriting a little bit, you have all these famous songwriters, Chopin and Elton John, and lyrics and music. And does anything typically come first for you?
No, the music comes easier for me, and I think I've written just as many songs with the music coming first as I have with the lyrics coming first. Although I think the songs I've written with the lyrics coming first have had the longest shelf life, and they've always just kind of rolled off the assembly line, and it was easier. And I think the easier those songs are, the longer they take to write, the less the fewer years I end up playing them, and the shorter they take to write are the ones that last for a long time. I don't know the significance of that at all, but I found it to be true.
Interesting. You mentioned that Deshaun Colvin and David Crosby sent you some lyrics to
Yeah.
work on. Do you enjoy doing that? I mean, it's not like, being in the same room as somebody writing a song, and I know you don't necessarily like that. What about when they give you lyrics?
It's easier for me. When Crosby said, I think I got a bunch of lyrics. I'd love you to maybe if you come over tomorrow, we could work on them. And I said, what, like in the same room? And he said, well, I guess not. And so I went over there, and I said, I don't know. I don't like just sitting down and trying. So he said, here are 7 lyrics. Do what you can, and it took me like 5 or 6 weeks to sit down with any of them, and finally I did. I wrote melodies to 2 of them, music to 2 of them, which he really liked. So I also changed quite a few of the lyrics, so which I just can't help myself, Ted.
So you changed around the ands and the buts. Is that what
I
happened?
did change the ands and the buts. When I played it for David, he said, he changed about 75% of my lyric. He was talking to his wife, to Jan, and he said, every line's better, which I was happy, I was happy to hear. But he didn't record it, or he hasn't recorded them yet. Anyway,
What about the other 5 songs? I mean, you still.
I haven't looked at them in a long time. And with Sean, she loves writing separately, so I had sent her music I had written, and she wrote the lyrics to a song called "The Fall of Rome," which was I think it was It was for a movie. It was a title cut for a movie called Edie and Penn, with Stockard Channing and Scott Glenn, I think. And then it became the bonus track on her Fat City record. And I think with Mark Cohn, we sat in a room and actually wrote a couple songs that ended up in a movie or a couple of movies. But generally, it's hard for me to tell somebody that sucks, and it's also hard for me to hear it. So uh, I try to keep away from it. Al Anderson too. He and I have written things in the same room,
Yeah.
but it's not that common with me.
Imagine Bernie saying to Elton, "That sucks."
I think Bernie did the lyrics first every time, right?
Yes, he did. Yeah.
Or most of the time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty cool. So who would you like to send for them to send lyrics to you? I mean, your heroes. I mean, you open up your email.
Bernie's a good one.
And here's an email from who would you like it to be?
Ooh. Bernie would be a good start.
Yep.
Randy Newman, but he doesn't need me to write the music. He's just gonna put his thing to it anyway.
Yep.
Good question. There are a couple of poets that I would love for. I actually asked one of them to work on a lyric, but he didn't want to do it.
Anybody have a question? Please help me out. Susie.
I have a question.
Sure.
Kenny, I just find you like the most wonderful pianist. I could see you on stage, in a symphony, and I'm just kind of wondering, how did you learn that? I mean, did you go to? I'm assuming you went to school, but I mean, how did you develop such a great skill in doing that?
The School of Hard Knocks, Susie.
Wow.
I went to college for a year, but I took music courses too, but I didn't learn anything, and nor did I learn much with taking piano lessons. This was playing records for years. Remember, on vinyl it had 33, and it also had 16, and if you turned the speed to 16, it was exactly in the same key, so but half the speed. So I get to learn Inagata Davida and Light My Fire note for note, slow and halftime, and I would sit there with those records on 16 RPMs every day after school, and then I got into a band in high school, and then I started playing gigs, and that was the only way. I never really learned anything from being taught. It was all from listening.
Well, your song Symphony in 16 bars. I had to go and look it up, what a bar was in music and everything, because I'm thinking, you're in the lyrics of the song, you're saying it. I can't tell you how I feel. It would be as hard as writing a symphony in 16 bars. So I had to look up what that meant. And I thought you were such a good pianist, so I think you're such a good one. I was going to ask you, have you ever written a symphony?
No. And I've written kind of classical influence pieces, short ones, and a few of them for TV commercials, and recorded them with classical players and a couple of opera singers. Mm-hmm. But no, I've never written anything longer than a couple of minutes, I think.
Well, I have this one more question, and it's I know that you play guitar and piano. Which one did you learn first? And is it
piano?
I think
piano.
How do you decide? In your concert, you said that you wrote one of your songs in guitar. How do you decide how you write it, and how is it different when you do it?
Availability. I was at my parents' condo in Florida when I wrote My Recurring Dream, and I had my guitar, and I wrote it on guitar. And then later on, I said, I think this might make a better piano song than a guitar song, and it ended up being the franchise, at least for a while. I love playing guitar, but I didn't start playing guitar seriously until end of high school, and in college. I got sick of the piano, and I wanted to just play guitar, and that's what I did through most of my year at college. So I didn't go to that many classes.
Well, that's an awesome song. I think Claudia had a question.
You got to unmute.
Right, thank you. Yeah, I really enjoyed this concert. Thank
Thanks.
you. Yeah. You say you had written some classical type of music, and I was just wondering, were there any particularly classical composers who influenced you?
No, not particular. I mean, not directly. Obviously, there hasn't been an original note since Bach, written in music. So everything has had to have affected me in some way. But I wasn't a real aficionado. I loved some of Mahler's stuff. I obviously love Beethoven stuff. I learned some of Bach stuff. I learned uh, Chopin's Etudes, which was the last time I really practiced the piano, which was 40 years ago. I learned the Revolutionary Etude, and which then I heard played. Are you familiar with that one?
Yep. Yeah.
Well,
I've heard that.
it's supposed to be played really quickly, and I think it would be a much better composition if it was played like half the tempo. And that was my problem. I always had my own opinions about things, and I would have told Chopin, no, slow it down, man. It's a beautiful song. It's all going by so fast. So I think everything had everything was absorbed by me. My parents were not big classical fans, although they had it was more show tunes with them, and I think Hammerstein and Lerner and Lowe. I think they all were affected by classical. Cole Porter. They're all affected by classical people, and I was affected by them. So indirectly, yes. Directly, I'd say no.
Interesting.
And it's
Thanks.
funny, I really got to love Mahler's stuff on record. And then I went to see it live, and I didn't like it nearly as much. When they did Shostakovich or something that day, I said, oh, he's much better live than on record. Which I'm told the same thing about me, but there you go.
Thank you. Great. Thanks.
Yeah.
So what about on the other side of things, the wordsmith in you? Were you an English major? Did you read a lot of books? Where does that come from?
I got to tell you, I was not a reader. I was not in an English. I did very poorly in English. I did poorly on my SATs in English, about half of what I got in math. And somewhere much later in life, I just became fascinated with language and the use of it and the way words were juxtaposed. And I don't know where it came from. There was no real rhyme or reason for it. But and I became a real stickler for grammar, and spelling. And I mean, I can't stand how many times I read "there" wrong on the internet, and it drives me crazy. And these were things that never used to bother me. I really don't know where that came from, Ted. It was sudden. It turned around, and I really will stick with an and or a but for a week now. I'm so fascinated by the difference of what one word can make to a sentence, or the difference in timbre. Just I don't know. That's where my heart is right now, in the lyrics more than the music.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I was going to suggest, I mean, after listening to the letter that your dad wrote, Letters from X-Ray, I kind of was going to ask the question before Ted brought it up. I kind of see where you get your lyrical skill, because that letter was absolutely beautiful. I mean, when you read it, and I was also kind of curious, does he have other letters? Are you going to write other songs? I mean, it was so wonderful.
I didn't use any of the words in those letters, but I have about 200 of those letters here, and each one is just I didn't know it, Susie. He never displayed that side of him. He was a quiet guy and a factory worker. He worked in a factory, shipping department in a factory for 43 years. I never saw that side of him. And I didn't know it existed, really. I knew he was, he would do the Sunday crossword every week. This is a guy that had to drop out of school after 8th grade to help support his family. And I don't know where those words came from. It was my brother and I both were just kind of stultified by it. Like, what is this? How did this happen?
Well, I think you inherited some of it. All I know, if I was a wife at home, that letter would have just floored me. It's so beautiful.
It's funny, and we can't find any of my mother's letters to him, which I know they were equally as many. I think she destroyed them, or I don't know. She was self-conscious about those things. She kept all of his and not hers, because I know he brought them home with him. Yeah, it was quite a time. Can't really imagine. Hey, Brian, you're muted.
Sorry about that. How are you, Kenny? Good to see you.
Good, Brian. Good to see you, man.
Can't wait to see you in person, brother.
It'll happen one of these days. Brian is
so.
one of 10 siblings that I've known since I was 9 years old, and still close to all of them. That's really a bizarre situation.
That's a tribute to your parents and our parents.
Yeah, exactly.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Fort Lee, New Jersey. Skylar's grew up in Newburgh, New York.
Most of us still live in.
You still live there?
Yeah.
Yeah. I moved there. I moved to the next town over for about 13 years, New Windsor.
Yeah, commuting back and forth.
Yeah, Orange County. Yeah. I was going back and forth, indeed.
Sandy, did you have a question, Sandy?
At the top.
Just a comment. I'm from Sullivan County, New York.
All the way up there.
Very close to Newburgh.
Wasn't that close to Newburgh, was it?
On hands and knees.
Yeah, I guess it is.
When you're in the country, if it's 40 miles, it's close.
Is that the Borscht Belt?
The Borscht Belt. I grew up in the golden era of the Borscht Belt.
Yeah.
My first job was with Jackie Mason.
Oh,
there you go.
Yeah, I'm looking up things to save for your mansion. Going through my stuff. So
Boyd, did you have a question?
Yeah, I'm one of the guys.
You muted yourself, Lloyd.
There you go.
Okay, got me.
Yeah.
Yeah, to see Brian Schuyler. Wow, was that who I just saw, Kenny? Brian Schuyler.
He's there.
Wow.
What's up, Lloyd?
Wow. Brian, hey brother.
How are you?
I'm missing you and your family, man. It's been a long time since
It's a
we
long
had
time.
that Camp Orange feeling.
Oh yeah,
You know?
I'll have a reunion one of these years.
That'd be great, man. And you know who the entertainment's going to be.
Yeah.
And I've been fortunate to see Kenny 4 times down here in Florida, and I can't wait to see him again. And he really, our childhood, we both know him. I know him since I'm 8 years old too. And at the time we had together at camp was really special. And him and his brother were just wonderful people, along with your family and the whole gang. And please give everybody a hug for me.
Absolutely.
8 years old. Oh man, unbelievable.
I remember Kenny coming and staying at our house when I was probably about 5 when he was a CIT.
Yeah, well, I private messaged Kenny some stuff that you can read later that'll bring him some should bring a smile to his face. But just a wizard on the piano, man. I've been listening to his music as I've been recovering from my surgery, and it just really helps.
I'm glad, Lloyd. Florida, that gigs in Florida were, I think, the second to last show I played in February 2020.
Yeah, I was there. Yeah.
And the last show I played was March 7th, 2020, and that's been it until
Wow.
August 13th this year. So it'll be a year and a half. It's pretty
Well,
awesome.
I don't see you wearing your hat, brother. I don't know.
I got him. I got him.
I'm just kidding.
I
All
had
right, man.
good to
Well,
see you.
tell Larry I said hey, and all hugs to all the Skylers and all the Newburgh people up there.
Shall do.
Okay.
Yeah, I had COVID last gig I played in March, and I didn't know it. You know, I had a pretty mild case of it.
Oh man.
But,
Wow.
yeah, that was pretty bizarre. I didn't have it in Florida, but I got it coming back on a plane from Chicago. Yeah.
Wow.
Lucky one.
Yeah. Thank God.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, be well day
Thanks.
by day.
Thanks.
Getting back to the music, the influence piano players in rock and roll. Who are some of your favorites?
You know,
Sorry.
that's a tough one because I was listening to guitar players. I listened to a few jazz players, but there were Bill Payne later on. A lot of them came later on when I started. Bill Payne, Matt Rawlings, and right now Larry Goldings. I don't know if you know Larry Goldings. Larry played on a lot of records. I think he played on some later Joni stuff. He played on the Madeline Peru record, the first one with "Dance Me to the End of Love," the Leonard Cohen song. If you've ever heard that, I consider that to be like the perfect piano solo. What he did in that song. Matt Rawlings, there's a solo he did on "That's Right, You're Not from Texas," Lyle Lovett record. Another perfect piano solo, and in this much time, these guys were able to say so much. Earlier on, it was Nicky Hopkins for me, and I met him when I was 15, because a friend of mine, well, the guy that was in the band with me, was a big fan of Quicksilver, Messenger Service, the San Francisco band, and he was and John Cipollina, the guitar player in that band. And Van, at the ripe old age of 16, picked up the phone and called John Cipollina collect because he found his number in the phone book. Cipollina says, "Yeah, I'll accept the charges. I don't know who he is. This was a simpler time." And they talked for about an hour. And then when Quicksilver played the Fillmore East next time, he invited Van and four of us to come into the Fillmore for the show backstage, and Nicky Hopkins was playing with him at the time. I was 16 years old. I didn't have a lot to say to him, but I was thrilled. We were hanging out with Nicky Hopkins, and he was on all the Stones records and
jamming with Edward. My brother interviewed him on radio once, and I got to meet him. I just remember those long, bony fingers of his.
Yeah.
And the Stones really wanted him to, be their keyboard player, but his health just wasn't good enough. So because of that,
I didn't know that at the time.
Yep, and he just, because of that, another friend of ours, Chuck Lavelle, got that spot.
Another great one.
Oh yeah, and he's been with them, 45 years or so. But Nicky, She's a Rainbow. I mean, he's played on so many incredible songs that
Yeah.
but you don't know he's the guy.
Yeah. And Chuck is another one. Chuck on the Allman Brothers stuff. I was a big fan, and that Stones gig couldn't happen to a nicer or more deserving guy.
Now, last time the Stones were in town, Jelly, Jelly, Jelly off of Brothers and Sisters. When I heard that piano solo, that was it. He was my favorite keyboard player. So when he came to the house, he played it for us on that keyboard. That was awesome. And again, a self-taught guy.
He was, right?
Yeah.
C level. That was after the Allmans, right?
Yes, it was. C for Chuck, level for Lavelle. And his last name is really Level, but somebody kept calling him Lavelle, and he thought that sounds much cooler than Level. So we changed it to Lavelle. So you said you were never a reader with your wordsmith talent, but do you read? Are you reading? Do you read books?
Slowly, I've had ADD since forever. since they diagnosed it wrong when I was 10 years old and put me on Valium for a year instead of the opposite, what
Yeah.
it should have been an amphetamine at the time, but they didn't know that. And the Valium really screwed me up, for taking that at 10 years old for a year. I was really, so I wasn't diagnosed until much, much, much later, maybe 20 years ago. So my reading was hard. I would read the same thing over and over, and then I'd be thinking of 100 other things. Even when they brought me in, I had to get an EEG at 10 years old, and they put wires on your head, and they tell you to sit in a room for 30 minutes and think about nothing.
Ah,
That was the right thing to tell me. And then they said, well, we don't see anything in there. Then I said, we'll put them on Valium. That ought to take care of it. And it didn't. It made it worse. So I wasn't really reading much in school. I was doing just barely enough to get by. And then later, I discovered some books that if I can fall in love with a book in the first 2 chapters, I'm in, and
Yeah.
I can read it. But if it's thick and if there's not a lot of dialogue, like Cold Mountain, everybody told me I would love, but Cold Mountain had very little dialogue, and it's really hard for me to read that much description. I need to read, Prayer for Owen Meany was fabulous. Grapes of Wrath may be my favorite book ever. Also a lot of dialogue. Confederacy of Dunces. I mean, those might be my 3 favorite books right there. And Lonesome Dove. Those are probably my 4 favorite books. And phenomenal. When I can sink into one of them, I'm in heaven. But it's a chore for me. People send me stuff a lot, and it's tough. It's tough for me, but I could work harder at it.
I
Yeah.
take it you're not a big James Michener fan then.
I've never read a
He's-
James Michener.
He
No.
is very, very descriptive. I think I read his book Hawaii. It took him 5 chapters to get past the
Yes,
volcano forming and making
that's
the
what it
island.
was with Annie Proulx and Cold Mountain. The same thing. It was just so descriptive and beautiful, but I just start drifting and drifting, And whereas, I like John Irving. I liked all his books, but A Prayer for Owen Meany really got to me. That one was something else,
you have to
Then-
start microdosing LSD or something. Maybe that'll help.
Well, I did that maybe a little too young. I was done with it by 17. And,
Microdosing, not macrodosing.
you mean, I don't know if that's, well, I don't trust myself. But, I'm game for anything.
Anybody have any final questions?
Claudia, are you just a classical fan, or are you a pop or a folk music fan, or a pop music fan?
I like folk. I like some rock, and blues. I write songs in the classical mode. Need to get back on it.
With lyrics or no?
Usually I set poems to music. So usually other poets, occasionally my own poems.
Wow.
Yeah, it's. But I think your songs, one thing I noticed about them is that the lyrics were fabulous, but also the music, the melodies were real melodies, and that's so rare.
Yeah.
In
tell me.
current music.
I
So
know.
yeah, that was really wonderful.
It's a
I
shame.
hate.
that it's rare.
Sorry, go ahead.
It's a shame that it's so rare. I'm really always longing to hear it. And I like some new people now. I think Billie Eilish is really good, and she's writing melodies and a few others. But
Mhm.
there aren't that many because nobody really seems to want it. And when you see how many people are writing songs now, they're like 13 or 14 names because they all write one part of the song. And
Right.
I just don't like the trend very much.
But if you hear a song and remember it, isn't that because it has a memorable melody?
Yes. Yes, I do remember lines that I certainly wish I had written, but they're also more melodies than lines.
Yeah.
And when they fit together, perfectly, and there are a few of them. Paul Simon was the first one that I saw how lyrics and music went together, and up until like the Bookends record, I never really got that concept. And then I realized listening to that record that one couldn't exist without the other. They would have existed, but they would have been not. It would have been not as strong, like Lennon and McCartney.
Yes, they really complemented each other.
Yeah, they totally did.
Yeah.
And I think Marie, Randy Newman, I think that might be the most perfect song ever, lyric and music together.
Just one last thought. You bring up Simon and Garfunkel. You know, it always amazed me that he writes a great song like America and not one line rhymes. And I think that is so awesome.
You know it. It is pretty amazing. I know it. I know. It's a beautiful thing.
You don't have to
do that often, but that one.
Okay. Any last comments? Susie, anything?
Thanks.
Well, thank you again, Kenny. Really, I can't wait till you can come back down to the mansion.
Me too. I hope it's sooner than later.
Just say the word whenever you're ready.
I will. I will for sure.
And I'm so glad that we reran this show. Thank you, Susie, so much. Great editing. Love the editing. And it was just wonderful reliving that.
Thanks.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you very much. I'm glad you liked it. One more question though, Kenny. What do you have coming up? What shows? Anything live?
I'm gonna go out with Cheryl Wheeler again in August. We're gonna be in New Hampshire and Vermont and Massachusetts the middle 2 weekends of August. And then I'm not playing again until Northern California in November. We have Novato, California, Sacramento, and Berkeley. And then I go to Colorado for a couple of dates, and then the Midwest, Michigan and Chicago.
That's great. It's good to see you out on the road again.
I'll be curious to see what it feels like. It's obviously the longest I've ever gone not doing it. So it'll be different. It'll take a while for at least a gig or two, I think.
But the audience will be right there with you because you don't know what you've got till it's gone, and everyone's chomping at the bit.
I hope they are. I hope that's true. I've also maybe gotten used to being in their sweatpants and sitting on their couches. So we'll have to see about that.
Don't forget to wear pants when you're playing.
Exactly. Otherwise, I might sell some records.
Thank you again.
See you guys.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ted.
It's great.
Take care.
Thanks, everybody.